Hello, everyone, and welcome back to American Ultras Talk. The new MLS season is approaching, so we thought it'd be a good time to review the 2024 MLS Next Pro season and choose the top 10 prospects that stood out. We will also be making a video of the top 10 breakout candidates within MLS as the start of the season gets closer, but think of this as a little sneak peek since some of these guys could make those lists. Now, before we get into it, just a quick PSA from us. We apologize for the inconsistency of uploads over the past several weeks, particularly with our weekly series Stockwatch. We've had a lot of scheduling conflicts due to unforeseen circumstances, but we're fully committed to getting back to a consistent 3 video per week schedule starting next week, including Stockwatch every Monday. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the list with a few honorable mentions that I thought deserved recognition despite not cracking the top 10. And let's kick it off with probably the most known player prospect within MLS Next Pro, probably the reason you clicked on this video, to be honest, Kevin Sullivan, 2009 birthday, US U17 international at that level, 5 goals and 4 assists with 1,421 minutes, a really good goal contribution to minute ratio, especially for someone his age, as we know, of course, but just for any player in the league in general. I mean, I've put it out on Twitter a couple times this season. If you look at his goal contribution to minute ratio compared to some of the players who've been involved with the USA U20s this season within MLS Next Pro, I mean, he's better than all of them. And I think that just kind of speaks volumes on how good he's been despite kind of joining the MLS Next Pro season, joining Union 2 midway through the year. And ultimately, that was kind of the reason why he didn't end up making the top 10. Plus, there's a few more Union players on the list, as you'll see once we get into the top 10. And I wanted to diversify a little bit in terms of the club, but I mean, I think we all know what Kevin Sullivan has done. He scored multiple golazos from long range, including in the Eastern Conference Final against Columbus Crew. He became the youngest ever MLS player, of course, not at the same level, but very significant. He even made the MLS 22 under 22 list, making number 18 spot despite only playing 9 MLS minutes. He's, of course, a regular and a star with the USA U17s, signed a homegrown deal with the Union, the record-breaking one, the most expensive, most lucrative homegrown contract in MLS history. Of course, has the pre-agreed transfer to join Man City, and all around, I mean, I think we just know what an incredible talent he is. He even started a game in preseason for the Philadelphia Union first team. So just a quick hint, he's going to be in the top 10 breakout candidates list in MLS. 100%. I think he's in for a really, really special season with the Union, and ultimately he didn't make the top 10 for this list just due to the lack of minutes, and that's not his fault. He was with the U17s for half of the MLS Next Pro season, but if he was to have played the whole season, there's no doubt in my mind that he would have made the list, which is why he's an honorable mention. Now, onto the second honorable mention, I'm going to have to give a shout out to Chase Adams, the 2008-born striker from the Columbus Crew 2, or the Capybaras as they're known by the fans. 10 goals, 3 assists in MLS Next Pro in 15:37 minutes. Scored in the first round of the playoffs against Inter Miami too, as well. He won the Rising Star of the Month in July. He was an MLS Next All-Star as well. I got to see him play live in that event, which was pretty cool, alongside Kevin Sullivan, actually. He signed his pro deal with Columbus, of course. He's also a USA U17 regular, I'd say, probably the number 1 striker for that age group. And ultimately, again, he just doesn't cut it because there's a lot of talent within the top 10, but I believe he was the youngest player to hit 10 goals, and I mean, not a lot of players did that in general, so he definitely deserves a shout out. Bright future for Chase Adams in Columbus. Now, onto the third honorable mention, and the first two kind of made honorable mention and not the full list because of the fact that they didn't play as much. Now, Alexander Freeman is an honorable mention because I actually considered him too old for this list. He has a 2004 birthday, means he's 20 years old right now. The right back from Orlando City. He's more than good enough to play at the MLS level. Orlando just doesn't seem to trust their academy players as of late, which is a bit concerning for that club at least. But 8 goals, 9 assists from right back, for Orlando City B in MLS Next Pro for Alex Freeman in 2,332 minutes. He was, in my opinion, the biggest snub from the MLS Next Pro Best 11. I thought he was probably the best defender in the league when you consider his defensive impact, his attacking impact, everything in between. He had 6 goals and 4 assists in the last 7 games, again from right back to end the regular season, ending on an absolute tear. I believe he even got an assist in actual MLS as well in the very few minutes that he did get. Ultimately, he would have been towards the top of this list if he was just a little bit younger. Because he's 20 years old, I thought that probably it would make sense to have him more as an honorable mention instead of in the list, but still a great season for him. Hopefully he either finds a move or gets some minutes with Orlando. Now, on to the top 10. And remember, guys, this list is very subjective. There was a lot of very talented young prospects within MLS Next Pro this season. So if there's anyone you think I missed out on, please feel free to leave it in the comments below. State your case. Be more than happy to reply. Now, just be careful. Mention prospects. Don't pick David Pareba from the Chicago Fire just because he won MVP. He's 22 years old. He doesn't fit this criteria. But if there's anyone you think I forgot, definitely leave them down below. And there's definitely a deserving case for a lot of players that aren't on the list. But starting it off with number 10, I'm going to go for the only goalkeeper on the list. I thought it would be only fair to include one because, of course, we need some diversity across the pitch as well as the clubs. I picked Andrew Rick from the Philadelphia Union 2006. He's a regular with the USA U19s. He played 17 games for Philadelphia Union 2 this season, only allowed 25 goals, 5 clean sheets, including 2 in their playoff run that ultimately ended in the final to North Texas, 42 saves, 1 clean sheet in MLS, which is pretty cool to see, and he even had a save against NYCFC's first team that made the SportsCenter top 10, coming in at number 2, which is, I think, an incredible moment for someone who traditionally has been playing for the second team in a reserve league. It's, like I said, a U19 international, trying to make it into the U20s, but there's a very stacked goalkeeper list there, as you guys probably know. And of course, probably the highlight of his season, he signed a homegrown deal with the Philadelphia Union, committing his future to them long term, as unless he moves to Europe, which he probably will at some point, the long-term successor to Andre Blake, one of the best goalkeepers in MLS history. Very well-deserved spot for Andrew Rick on the list. And now on to number 9. I'm going for another one who's the only one of his position here. It's Colin Gusk from Orlando City B, a 2007-born center defensive midfielder. Only 1 goal and 2 assists in 2,164 minutes, but he's not in here for goal contributions. He's a CDM. He brings a lot more than that in terms of his distribution, his defensive play, 4 clean sheets as a CDM. He's the only U20 player to play meaningful minutes for Orlando City B, just highlighting what I reinforced when I talked about Alex Freeman and how Orlando doesn't trust their young players. We see that with the first team, but even with the second team, the fact that Colin Gusk was the only U20 player to play real minutes for them, I mean, for starters, it's kind of embarrassing for the club and for their academy system, but it also just goes to show how important and how good of a player he was this season. He is also, alongside Andrew Rick, a USA U19 international, trying to break into that U20 roster. It's going to be challenging considering the midfield depth we have there that are already established at higher levels, but he's a good enough player. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on him to see if he gets any real MLS minutes this season. Now on to number 8, and it's going to be another midfielder, but a slightly more advanced one, an 8/ maybe a 10 at times. Diego Garcia from North Texas, from FC Dallas's academy, 2006 born, a midfielder. 8 goals, 4 assists this season for him in 2,278 minutes, a goal and assist in the playoffs. He won MLS Next Pro, of course, as a crucial player with North Texas SC, with that incredible comeback against Philadelphia Union 2 in the final. He was called up to the USA U19s as well, alongside Colin Gusk, alongside Andrew Rick. He was also an alternate for the U20 team in the CONCACAF tournament over the summer, signed a homegrown deal with FC Dallas, and I think he's definitely in for some more first-team minutes next season. Very talented player, and truth be told, he caught my eye before the season even started when he was in preseason with the Dallas first team. I thought he was very impressive. I thought he could have potentially a breakout season, and I wasn't disappointed. Incredible year for Diego Garcia. I think definitely the best young player, at least, for North Texas in that championship run. Very deserving of a spot here, and I'll be curious to see not only can he carve out a spot with FC Dallas next year, but maybe even with the U20s if he does that. Now, on to number 7, and we're going to another club here. Owen Priestess from the Columbus Crew 2, same club as Chase Adams, who I mentioned as an honorable mention. 2006 born, very versatile player. He has played in the midfield at times, but he's traditionally a right back or a left back, a full back player, although Columbus Crew 2 did play with a 3-back, so he was at times playing wing back, at times playing in a back 3 as an outside center back. I mean, he just caught my eye in general for not only his defensive play, but his attacking versatility as well. 2 goals, 7 assists this season from fullback position, 2,281 minutes. He actually led Columbus Crew 2 in minutes and assists. He was also tied for second most assists by a defender in the entire league. Of course, just behind Alex Freeman, who I already mentioned as having 9. He made his Crew first team debut against Aston Villa of the Premier League. They had a mid-season friendly against them, so that was definitely a cool moment for him. He's also a USA U19 international. Seems to be a trend here with the lower list players in this top 10. All 4 of them so far USA U19 internationals, not cracking the U20s yet, but I think Priestess has a very good shot at doing that. Considering the fullback group, I think he's definitely amongst the favorites to make that final roster if we just go by talent and performance. Of course, he also signed a pro deal with Columbus, so congratulations to him on that. And I'll be very curious to see what their plans are for him because, as we've seen this past season with players like Taha Habrun and Cole Moraka, Columbus just doesn't have the roster space. They have too much depth to play these young players, as unfortunate as that is for them. So maybe a loan to USL could be the right move for him, although it didn't work out great for Moraka last year. I think it's just going to be interesting to see what he does. Probably a lot of MLS Next Pro minutes next season, and if he does get that, I'll be looking to see a substantial jump from Priestess, but for now, definitely deserving of a top 7 spot on this list. Now, moving on to number 6, and we have a player who we actually interviewed on our channel about a year ago, so if you haven't somehow seen that yet, go watch it. It's going to be Eddie Davis, the striker from the Philadelphia Union, a 2006-born player who had 14 goals, 3 assists in MLS Next Pro this season in 2,057 minutes for Philadelphia Union 2. He also scored a great solo goal in the final against North Texas, although they did end up losing. I believe that was, I don't remember if it was the first or the second goal of the game, but it helped get Union 2 off to a hot start in that final, and ultimately he was instrumental along their run the entire way as the top scorer of the team. Also tied for 3rd in the league in goals, if you include the playoffs, of course, which is an incredible achievement for just an 18-year-old player. He also had the most non-penalty goals in the league, just reinforcing the fact that he was definitely the best young striker in MLS Next Pro, if not one of the best players in general in the league. Somehow, bafflingly, he still hasn't gotten a U.S. Youth National Team call-up. He's eligible for the U20s, eligible for the U19s. I really just don't get it, considering how weak the striker pool is for this level. Hopefully, once he gets some MLS minutes this season, fingers crossed he'll get a look, because I truly believe this isn't just the bias talking. I truly believe he's one of the best strikers in the U20 pool. I think he would make a real impact on that team. It was also reported a few days ago, actually, that by Tom Bogert, the leading MLS reporter, that Eddie Davis has signed a homegrown deal with Philadelphia Union. It hasn't been officially announced by the club yet, but Tom Bogert knows his stuff. He's very reliable. So assuming that's true, of course, huge congratulations to Eddie. It's been a long time coming, and I'm very excited to see what he does at the MLS level next season, because let's face it, if you look at the Union roster, there's some strikers there that he's already probably better than, so hopefully he gets to make an impact at that level next season. Now, on to the top 5, into the top 5 of this list, the top half, and I'm going to go with a player who's actually very good friends with Eddie Davis and another player from the Philadelphia Union. I'm going to pick Neil Pierre, the 2007-born center back who, in my opinion, I think consensusly is one of the best defenders in the league, probably the best young center back in the league as well. 0 goals, 1 assist in 2,218 minutes for the Union 2. He was an absolute brick wall in the playoffs. If you watch Philadelphia Union 2's run to the final, he was instrumental with those 2 clean sheets that they got along the way, including his only assist of the season, actually. Beautiful long ball to CJ Olney, who you might see later on this list. No guarantees, but he's probably up there. He had the winner against NYCFC 2 in the first round. Excellent long ball. I mean, the thing that stands out for Neil Pierre, besides, of course, his physicality, his height being around 6'5", 6'6", and his defensive awareness as well, the thing that stands out the most whenever you watch him is his distribution of the ball. For a player that big, especially as a 17-year-old, it's really uncommon to see. It's honestly incredible. He's one of the best distributors of a center back that I think we're going to have in our pool at all long term. So definitely one to watch. Not only has he been with the USA U19s like a lot of other players in this list, he's actually captained them, despite being one of the youngest players in camp. He signed his homegrown deal with the Philadelphia Union as well, and he actually trialed at Borussia Mönchengladbach, the club of Joe Scally, and I believe Arsenal as well in the Premier League over the off season in the winter. So definitely a player to watch out for. In my opinion, again, this could just be the Union bias talking, but a lot of people agree with me. I think he's one of the best young center backs we have in the USMNT pool in general. He's up there with Noah Kai Banks. Real special talent. Hopefully, again, he gets minutes with the main Philadelphia Union team this season, but considering the lack of center back depth that they have, I think he will, and I think he'll stand out. Again, despite his age, I think he's another true contender for the U20 team, so definitely keep an eye on Neil Pierre this coming season. Now, into the top 4, and all 4 of these players, fun fact, actually made the MLS Next Pro Best 11. So an incredible achievement for them, and I think that's why they're top 4 on the list. And I'm going to kick it off with Aaron John, the 2006 born midfielder from Crown Legacy, which is Charlotte FC's second team. 8 goals and 10 assists this season for the midfielder in 2,295 minutes. Of course, he was an MLS Next Pro Best 11 inclusion. He led the league in assists as well from the midfield. He also led Crown Legacy in minutes and goals, despite being mainly a facilitator. He was top 5 in the league in goal contributions, won Rising Star of the Month in June, and to cap it all off, probably the most important thing here, he signed a homegrown deal with Charlotte. Based on his production alone, I'd be very surprised if he doesn't get a look with the U.S. youth national teams at some point. He, like Eddie Davis, somehow has not gotten a call-up for the U20s or U19s. I'm very curious to see why that is. I mean, I think he's definitely a player who could impact either one of those teams, specifically the U19s, and also be curious to see how many minutes he gets for Charlotte FC this coming season. Of course, as a homegrown player, as one of the most productive players in MLS Next Pro across the entire league, I think he's probably ready for a step up, at least for a couple of games. So we'll see how that goes, but congratulations to Aaron as well for an incredible season, well deserving of a spot on the top 4 in this list. Now, on to number 3, and it's going to be, surprise, surprise, another Philadelphia Union 2 player, Frankie Westfield, the versatile fullback, the 2005 born, 7 goals and 6 assists across 2,703 minutes in MLS Next Pro this season. Of course, he also made the MLS Next Pro Best 11, like I mentioned, one of the top minute getters in the league. Just bar none, not even just prospects. He was the only fullback in the best 11. The other 2 defenders were center backs, so notable achievement there. They thought that he was the best fullback, and rightly so, considering his production. He was a co-captain for the Philadelphia Union too, and most games he was the captain because the other co-captain, Kyle Tucker, is a bit older of a player. He's more of a veteran type guy for this level. He didn't play as much, so Westfield was the captain for the majority of the games, including in the playoff run that they had. He scored in the Eastern Conference Final as well against the Columbus Crew too. A great goal. Made his U.S. Youth National Team debut. Well-deserved call-up. He was one of the guys similar to Aaron John, similar to Eddie Davis, that had been overlooked for a while, but he actually got the recognition from the U.S. Youth National Team, made his debut with the U20s, and he actually should have had an assist or 2 in his first game. That one was available to be streamed. He's played, I think, a couple other times for them, or at least one other time, but the other ones weren't streamed. He also signed a pro deal with the Philadelphia Union. It's rumored that it will become a homegrown deal at some point, I think either this offseason or next, so well-deserved. Saved him of a commitment to play at Penn State, which nothing bad about them, but I mean, I think we all know that MLS is much better than college soccer, so well-deserved inclusion on this list for Frankie Westfield. And if you look at the Union's preseason, he started both games that they had over in Spain against Slavia Prague, a Europa League team who played their first team there, and AGF Aarhus, who are one of the top performers in Denmark this season. He started both of those games, so there is a real indication that he's going to get significant MLS minutes this coming season, so keep an eye out on Frankie Westfield. He's a player who goes under the radar a lot, but is definitely worth being tracked. Now, on to the top 2, and I think for anyone who followed MLS Next Pro this season, the top 2 are probably pretty obvious, but it's just a matter of question, which one is number 1? And for number 2, I'm going to pick Mekhi Joyner from St. Louis City FC, the 2006 born winger/striker who scored 19 goals this season and 4 assists, 2,118 minutes for St. Louis City's second team. 3 goals in the playoff. The clutch factor is real. I think 1 or 2 of those were last-minute winners. It was kind of incredible. He always popped up at the right moment. Very clutch player for St. Louis. He finished second in the Golden Boot race behind, of course, David Pareba, who I mentioned earlier in the video from the Chicago Fire too. He signed a homegrown deal with St. Louis, and he actually played for the USA U19s as well, alongside so many of the players on this list, and he even scored a goal for them as well. He's a natural-born goal scorer. The only reason, truthfully, why he wasn't number 1 is because a lot of his goals did come from the penalty spot. Now, there's no shame in that. I mean, of course, it takes a lot to be clinical from the penalty spot, especially as clinical as Joyner was this season. I don't know if he missed a single one, and if he did, I know his conversion rate was very, very good, but ultimately, I just thought there was one player who deserved the number 1 spot a little bit more than him. It's not a knock on Joyner. I think he's an incredible player, definitely deserving to be in the U.S. Youth National Team conversation, and hopefully he gets some real minutes for St. Louis City this coming year. But now, on to what you've probably been waiting for. Number one spot on the MLS Next Pro Top 10 list. It's going to be another Philadelphia Union 2 player, CJ Olney, the versatile attacking midfielder / winger, 2006 born, 7 goals, 9 assists this season in 2,236 minutes for Union 2, of course, alongside Joyner, Westfield, and Aaron John. Was in the MLS Next Pro Best 11. He was top 3 in the league in assists. He made his MLS debut as well, which was a nice moment for him against Charlotte FC. He scored the game-winning goal, like I mentioned, against NYCFC 2 in the first round of the playoffs, assisted by the beautiful long ball from Neil Pierre. Scored the game-winning penalty against Crown Legacy in the second round of the playoffs. He was in the most recent USA U19 roster. He's a player to watch for the U19s and U20s. One of the most talented players in the pool. Deserves more looks than what he's actually gotten. And, of course, he signed a homegrown deal with the Union. Overall, considering the run that the Union 2 had this season, making it all the way to the final, the fact that he was the most instrumental player, most consistent player for them, alongside Westfield, of course, I just thought he deserved the number one spot. Of course, an incredible season from all of these guys on the list, and that's going to be the end. So, again, like I said before I started the list, if there's anyone who you think I should have mentioned but didn't, definitely leave them in the comments. There was a lot of nominees for this. There was 106 players that I listed down before starting whittling it down. So many incredible talents were in MLS Next Pro this season. So if you thought anyone else deserved an honorable mention, and there are definitely players that did, let me know in the comments. I'll be sure to highlight them. Stay tuned for our new consistent upload schedule coming next week, as well as our top 10 MLS breakout candidates video. We also made one last year, so it'll be interesting to see how bad our predictions were from that as well. But with all of that done, I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and we'll see you next time.